Hey, welcome to Welcome Home Radio May 20th, where real estate lending and learning come together. This is your mortgage market update for May 20th, or excuse me, 27th. I'm a week off. We again are seeing some unbelievable news for everyone. Stocks are continuing to rally higher on optimism about the economy reopening, and mortgage bonds are trading near unchanged levels. So also the MBA, or the Mortgage Bankers Association, released their mortgage application data for last week, showing that overall application volumes increased 3% from the previous, and the purchases were up for the sixth straight week. That is a solid 9% up above year over year. So 9% more people are putting in for purchase applications than last year. This is awesome news for realtors and people looking for more space as this coronavirus continues to hold people in or quarantine. We still saw an increase in forbearance, but an amazing statistic has come out. Roughly 40% of those in forbearance are still making their payments. That is great news for those folks. Therefore, they are able to refinance or sell or purchase however they want to move forward. That's great, but they just used it as a backstop. We're also hearing that down payment assistance, or DPA programs, may start coming back. This is great news as we're looking for purchases are increasing and people are purchasing for their first home. With DPA programs coming back, FICO scores lowering, purchase applications up, it would appear the real estate market is jumpstarting in a big way our economy. And today we're going to be reviewing a lot of poll questions that we've asked. What are the key questions that you have out there? And of course, joining us today is my wonderful co-host, Alan Pace. How are you, sir?
I'm good. Good afternoon. How are you doing today?
I'm wonderful. And I don't know if Head Monkey Butt's going to join us or not. I thought he might. Mr. Warner, there he is. How are things up in Michigan?
Michigan is good. We're at about 75 degrees, about 95% humidity, but temperature is good.
Yeah, our temperature Alan, you would agree that our temperatures haven't been too bad right now, right?
No, it was like 58 here this morning. Felt good.
I'm telling you. Hey, we got a lot of poll questions that were asked, and I want to get to them because I think it'll be great discussion, and Tom will be joining us. But right off the bat, the very first question, should I buy or should I rent? And it's really interesting seeing the applications on purchases have gone up tremendously, 9% year over year. That is a huge statement, and people are looking for more space. Now, is this what you're hearing in the market? What are you seeing out there?
It's coming back. I mean, it did slow down, I want to say, in March, and pretty much in a little bit in April, and then we kind of gradually got some better news about this whole thing, and people, I think, were just tired of not being able to live their life, and so it's coming out, and it's coming out pretty quick, I think. In fact, I've seen a lot of activity just in the last week and a half or so. That it's good. Had open house, 2 open houses this past weekend, and had a lot of people come through, and that's a good sign.
That is a great sign. And again, I think with the holiday season, how are things up in Michigan for the holidays? Mark, did y'all get out and enjoy? It seems like everybody really kind of opened up across the nation.
Well, so partially, yeah, we're not fully opened here. We're still probably half on phase 1 to some degree. Our governor is still locked down. Like hair salons and
sounds
places
like she was locked down on her boat there or trying to get on her boat.
Yeah. That's our governor. But people have been out. I went to a couple of stores during the holiday and to work on the house here, and there was a lot of people out there, a lot of patriotic people. People were driving all over the place. I will tell you that Monday I went into town, or no, let's see, let me think what day that was. Yeah, I guess it was Monday. And I was really shocked how many people were out. And then I got home and I told my wife, and I was like, she's like, well, part of our city has opened up. So like some of our department stores, like Kohl's and some of the smaller stores we have here, the mom and pops, they started opening up. It's eerie because for 2 months driving by and seeing 0 cars in the parking lot, and all of a sudden seeing 150 cars in the parking lot, that was like, oh yeah, I guess that's normal. So I don't know if I remember what normal was.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are starting to get the ants in the pants. They want to get out. And I think with the increase in applications for purchase, I think a lot of people are testing the water. And Alan, for this first question, should I buy or should I rent? It's, renting's definitely cheaper, but I did some quick estimates just to give to our audience and yourself. I did an estimated $200,000 purchase, and over a 9-year program, the net gain of buying a home is almost $60,000 in net increase. And that's just dealing with a 4.2 increase in value. And that's low compared for Texas. I think we're at a 4.6 here, as well as negative on, positive on the cash flow. Amortization is 33,000 and appreciation gain over 45. So I just think people really need to look at renting. What is it you can share from your aspect of looking at renting versus buying to help our listeners understand there is a dramatic difference in that?
Well, I think both have their purpose, and I don't think just because we've gone through this COVID thing that needs to necessarily change. Renting serves a purpose when you're starting out in life, be it your first job, be it college graduation, whatever your situation, renting makes a lot of sense. You have to make some money. You have to save a few bucks. You need to have a job. You need to have a secure job. So I think renting is a good thing. Now, the transition out of rental goes a lot of different ways. The entrepreneur in a person might say, hey, I understand the facts that Blair just said. I'm young. If I start early, I can make a small fortune in 30 years doing this. The other factors are marriage and kids. And so there's other reasons people stop renting. They want a yard. And then there's just flat out pet owners. I got 2 dogs, and the landlord is upset with me. It ate the rug, and I'm tired of this. So I don't think because of the COVID we should change our philosophy and how we live our life going forward as far as buying or renting. But if you can afford to buy, it is certainly a better way to go using your money, I would say.
Yeah, I think. Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to weigh in on that for a second. So I would say buy, but I think there's a missing element that for a guy like me that's on the non side of being in the brokerage, real estate, or home loans or anything like that. People buy homes. A lot of times they buy it because it's a necessity that they need for their family. They need to have a place. They want to do something. But I think there's one missing element, and it's the sacrifice of what you're going to do for your family. Don't go buy a home just because you want to buy a home. Don't sacrifice the quality of your life. Find the right home for you. Even if it costs more, then maybe right now renting can be a good thing for you to save up, especially if you've got bad credit or you don't have enough money in the bank, then you can save up for those things. Renting can cost more than buying a home, though. So it depends on your area, depends on what your I don't know, your quality of means of life, or how much money you're making, how much money you're going to spend on groceries, how much you're going to spend on cars. But I just hear so many people buy a home and it's not the home they really wanted. And I don't know if I have the right word for it, but just don't bear into the necessity of just saying, I want a home to have a home. Wait. You can wait a little longer to find the right home for you and your family.
That's an interesting comment because, so often the first home we ever buy, and I'm sure Alan can weigh into this much better than me, the first home we buy and we don't know what we're getting into. And we don't know what we like or what we want. I think one of the key things coming out of this quarantine is that, yes, we're going to have an increase in family. We're going to have an increase in need of space. So having a yard, having a home that you can call your own. But I also think people, first time they buy, they don't know what they want. They don't know that they want 4 bedrooms, 3 bedrooms, 2 bedrooms, master downstairs, which is critical so many masters sometimes are upstairs and going up and downstairs, and how long you're going to stay. Because I think all those questions, and I think Alan can talk about that when he sits down and talks with somebody. What is your plan? Because if this is not your forever home, then let's look. One of the key things should be, I want to look at resale value. If I buy this home, how quickly can I sell it, and how quickly, if I stay in it 4 or 5 years, can I gain and be able to sell that to make my next step? And
I think Mark's points are good. He brought up points that are very valid. Again, I don't think that's any different than before COVID. It is what it is. You should never just do anything just to be doing it. There should be a plan involved, or there should be a necessity involved, or some reason for change. So as a realtor, my job is not to talk you into anything. It's to help you facilitate your goals and your dreams. And that's exactly how I run my business. So it's never about, if you don't buy it today, you're going to lose out next year. So no, Mark's points are all valid, and it's good advice. And I would say that's good advice about just about anything you do in life. Don't do it just to do it,
I think realtors, somebody like you, Alan, I think you put common sense into maybe a couple that doesn't have much of the common sense to buy a home, what they should be looking for, what they shouldn't be looking for. But, the thing is I can use me as a perfect example. I have a nice home and I have 10 acres of land. We chose a lot of homes before we bought this home. And one of the things we did with our experience, right? So we wrote things down. We said, we want this, we want this, we want this. And then we made the list shorter and said, okay, what do we actually have to have? And I didn't get 2 or 3 of the things that I really was on my necessity to have it as my essential for the home. But when the home came up, we started looking at the pro and cons. Does it have everything that we really wanted, what we needed, where we could move to? And the most important was, can we grow? Can we expand? Can I build? Can I do some of the things long term? I've already been in those short-term homes. I wanted to look for my forever home, my long-term home. So we found it. We found the home. The home didn't have some of the things I wanted. Okay, well, I'm building me a studio right now. I'm working on that. Then I've got to build me a garage. Didn't have a garage. But those are some of the things that I think that realtors are good at explaining to first-time buyers, even people that come in there saying, I need to get a home. I need a 3-bedroom. I need a 4-bedroom. But if you have those common questions to ask, what do you need your 4th bedroom for? You have 1 kid. So do you have relatives?
Well, I think what you do, you tell every buyer that I work with, I don't care if you're experienced or new. There's the 80%, 90% rule. You're never going to find 100% in any house you're searching for. It happens, I guess, occasionally, but for the most part, if you get 80%, it's pretty good. 85, you're a winner. You get 90 or better, you killed it. So everything can be grown into, everything can be changed. You can make it better. You can do what you want to do to make it from 85 to 95%. But if you have the basic things that you need, which generally is location and possibly school district, things like that, those are the things that, matter a lot to people. But, other than that, a house can be, it can be changed. You can do it. Now, sometimes a first-time home buyer doesn't have the money to do that. But then again, they're a first-time home buyer. And generally, after they've lived there a few years, they'll have some equity and they can make those changes. Whereas if you rent, like Blair started the show off with, you can't make 60 grand in your 401k in 8 years or whatever, unless you're making a lot of money. And so, that's how that works. It's common sense. It's not for everybody to buy a home. Some people want to rent. That's great. There's people that just rent their whole life. Nothing wrong with that. I know several of them, and they're happy. They smile. Life goes on. But in general, to raise your family and make your life better, a purchase of a home in the right situation, the right place for the right price is a good thing.
Could we say, Mark, that your statement really is, don't try to keep up with the Joneses? Buy the home if it comes up that you want and experience and grow, but don't do it just to keep up with the Joneses.
Yeah, exactly. I think we did that in our last home. It was kind of a combination. We bought the home and then we were trying to match the quality of our friends. that had it so that we could have that lifestyle. And over 10 years, we expanded and grew to it. But when we were looking for this home, we weren't looking for a new home. I wasn't looking for an 1800s or a 1900s home either. I was looking for a home that would just be best benefit to us for a long term. The one thing that we knew we wanted was what a lot of people want. We wanted a downstairs bedroom. We've had an upstairs bedroom for the last, 14, 15 years. So going up and down the stairs in a master bedroom is not a lot of fun at night. So that was what we chose. And we wanted land. So you got to look at what your, top 5 best assets that you want for your home. And
yeah, well, it's age significant on
hitting
what you want for your home.
You're hitting the mark, because what people are afraid to do, they're afraid of change. They're fear of upgrades. They want a perfect walk-in house at 100% today and not tomorrow.
You broke up a little bit there, Mark, and so we kind of talked over you some.
My internet's been going out. I was trying to say that people are trying to get perfect. And I believe your number at 80, 85, I think it really should be 75. But the problem with people buying homes sometimes have fear. They don't know anything about the upgrades. They don't know about changes and renovations.
Well, and that's what makes the world go around. We're all different. We're all different on our requirements. And it's okay if you're more picky than somebody else or less picky than somebody else. Right. I deal with everybody. And it's all cool. And the bottom line is we can all be happy at the end. When we get done, we find the right home. It works out. So, we're all different. It makes it fun.
Well, I guess I want to bring in one thing and do want to say hello to Diana. How are you out there? Great to hear from you. Most of the time, and 98.6% of everyone, this is the largest purchase they'll make. So they do need to do their due diligence. They do need to understand their desires. And that's what's so great about Alan and all of the, as he said, common sense that he brings to the table is to help understand your desires. The American dream portion is to own real estate, own a home, raise your family. But what are those important things? And until you can get those, or renting is not that bad of an option. Yes, there's opportunity, but you need to make sure it's right. So hopefully we've answered that. Should I buy or should I rent? Moving on, the next question, Key, and this is kind of interesting. What kind of home can I afford? Now, help our audience, Alan, in this. What does that break down to? I don't understand. What kind of home can I afford? Are we talking double wide? Are we talking brick? I mean, what are we trying to answer the question there?
Again, it's different with everybody. We're all different. And but in general, more people can afford $220,000 homes than can afford, $600,000 homes. There's more of them out there, and more people can afford that. But everybody's different. Again, you can afford what you can afford. So you go to somebody like Blair to start with, and he can help you with that question. What can I afford? Well, it depends on how much money do you owe, and how much money do you have, and how much money do you make. And then somebody like Blair will tell you, Blair will say, you can afford this comfortably. If you stay under it, even better. So there's looking at it like that. But in general, what you don't want to do is just be out in the public and guessing, like, what can I afford? And then get on the internet and try to find all those answers. And, everybody's an expert on the internet. So you really need to, on the biggest purchase of your life, talk to a lender, talk to a realtor who can connect you with a lender. Hell, call Mark. He knows everybody now. So you can talk to, you got to get good advice from experts, and that's where you want to start. You can afford what somebody will lend you unless you have cash.
Alan, how often do people come to you with already a set expectation? This is where I want to live. This is what I want to do. Help us get to that point. I mean, or do they come to you? I don't know what I need to do. I mean, it's very rare, isn't it, that they come very open-minded and say, what are the key steps I need to take? Or do they already come with key expectations?
I don't know if it's rare. I think a lot of it, again, depends on first house, second house, fifth house, whatever. But in general, most have an idea what they're looking for. Sometimes, I deal with 2 or 3 every year that have never done it and don't have any idea, and really don't have parents that ever bought a house either. And that's a different sit down meeting. You kind of start from the very beginning and explain the process and what it means, and then you give them some homework to do. Look up certain things. So neighborhoods that they might want to live in, or after they find out how much they can afford, that helps with that. But you really got to start at the beginning with some. Others come in, I want to live here. Here's how much my budget is, and this is what I got to have, and I'm not in any hurry. And so that's fine too. And you just work with everybody. But in general, most people have an idea, at least an idea of what they're looking for.
Is that because the internet is so readily available now, and people are able to look on Zillow and different areas to find opportunity, or why is that they come in with that idea? Because if somebody's been in an apartment all their life, how do they understand where to look without getting
the hardest thing about the internet and websites that have stuff, people tend to want more than they can really afford. They'll see something like, oh my gosh, that's it, I got to have that. Well, and then when you sit down with them and you talk to you, Blair, well, Alan, they can't afford that. This is what they can afford. Well, they said different. And then Blair says, well, then I don't know everything I need to know about them. And then you have another conversation. Maybe they didn't tell you about the money they had somewhere else. You only know what they told you too. So I've had it work so many different ways. There's people you think can afford the moon and can't, and then there's others you think, oh my gosh, and out of nowhere they can afford a lot more. So a lot of people live under their means, and that's a good way to live your life, is under your means. It's back to Mark's point a little bit about, rental is not bad if that's your means. Rental can be a good thing. And so I just think everybody, be it rent or be it buy, you can be happy. And but the people that generally buy, I'd say the thing that happens more is they want more than they can really afford.
Yeah, I do see that. Can I get that? I know you pre-approved me here. Can I get another 5,000 on top of that, and so forth? And they always try. And that's you go back to living within your means, living within the dichotomy or the economic financial means is critical. And hopefully, we always communicate that way, but they are the client. The next key question that really came up, I was really intrigued by this one. Is it possible to buy a home and sell my current one simultaneously? You want to add some? Mark's Monkey Butt's already answering our question for us. Yes, it is. Of course it is. There is some pre-planning that we like to do. I think one of the key things that I see on the financial side is we making sure the title companies know if you're dealing with two different ones, it's not as difficult as you would think, but it's doable. But if you're dealing with the same title company, that's always helpful. I literally just had one close last Friday. This way, they sold their home at 8:30 in the morning. They purchased their home at 3:30 in the afternoon, and both deals closed on time. The biggest thing that I saw was the title companies talked, and that wire transfer was able to take place from the first sale to the next purchase. So there was no validation of funds, nothing holding it up, and the funding code took place very quickly after they signed. So what would you add to any of that, Alan, from your side that you see when you're selling one, buying another all on the same day?
Well, a lot goes into that. It can be easy, but there's a lot of planning that goes in. You got movers for two different families, possibly. You have money coming from different lenders, and like you said, title companies involved. And so a lot can go into it, and timing. If the timing's not right, then somebody might have to stay somewhere else for a while. We have the tools called lease back in the contract where maybe the seller can stay there for a few more days or whatever. So there's things we can do about it, but yeah, it happens all the time. And it's very, very logical to not be able to buy another house until you sell the one you live in. It's your biggest asset. It's where a lot of your money is, if not the majority. And you need that to purchase another home. So yeah, that's a big part of the real estate system. And I'm actually getting ready to do one of them right now. So there is planning that goes into it. It doesn't always work perfect, but it generally works. every time.
Yeah.
It just I guess the caveat is the more party you have involved in any transaction, the more risk involved due to one of those parties' failures to perform.
It increased our communication process, but again, it is possible to do. With anything, there are risks, and I think if we know about it up front, and I guess that's the biggest thing that I would come back and say to that is, are you communicating with all the parties? Are you helping everyone understand this is our desires, this is our goals, we're trying to close on this date, we're trying to buy on this date, we need to move forward. In fact, this last one I just did was supposed to close this Friday. It actually closed a week earlier, and the client just asked, could we do it? And we were able to, but they actually closed on the same day. So it is very possible to be able to do that. Next question that came out that was pretty high, and this was a concern, especially if we look at it from the renter side. They've never purchased a home. Can I still back out of a deal? When is the last time I can back out? So it's an interesting question, because the concern of when am I locked in? Well, the bottom line answer is you're locked in when you sign at the title company. If you don't show up at title on the day of closing, then everything goes. It closes. You can back out at that point, up to that point. Once you sign on the dotted line, then we have a done deal. But Alan, have you seen this before? Is that a concern for people? When can I back out?
Well, in general, most buyers that are buying are not concerned about backing out. They're concerned about actually going ahead and buying. But it does happen where people change their minds. So in every contract you have on there an option period. And a buyer is free to walk away after an executed contract. You get anywhere from 3 to 10 days in an option period. Most of them are around 7 days. And at that, and the seller knows too, that anytime during that option period, a buyer can back out for any reason, be it the due diligence they're doing or they change their mind. It doesn't matter why they back out. They just back out and they're free to go. And so that's the easiest, most logical way to back out if you're truly going to back out. But you try to remind people this is an emotional business. When you tell a seller that you're going to buy their home, they get emotional. Okay, good, we got a buyer. So if you're representing the seller, you try to let them know not to get into this too much until we get through the option period. And on the other hand, with a buyer, if you're representing the buyer, you tell them, listen, you're in it. You made a decision. This matters. Do your diligence. If we can't get it solved in the 7 days, then you can back out. Or if you just simply change their mind, they can back out. But that's the safe way. And then there's other ways, be it different loans, FHAs, for example. And Blair, you can talk about this. But if things don't appraise, then the Federal Housing Authority supports the buyers by saying you can go bye-bye. And we're not going to make you buy anything that doesn't, appraise to the value that you're paying. So, and even in that situation, we can get through that most of the time by either getting the price lowered or, working it out with the buyer and the seller, some kind of cash raise or something.
Now, one area we didn't ask, what about the listing and the selling side? When is the last time they can back out?
Well, that's a little different. A seller they're the boss. Okay, it's their house. They run it. It's theirs to sell. But once they get into a contract and they say, okay, we accept these terms, we're going to sell the home, then they can't back out. They have to sell the home. So now there's a lot of things you can try to do. You can say, listen, something changed and we really don't want to sell anymore. But then the buyer's got recourse. They can get tough with you. So, but no, the seller, once they sign on the dotted line, they're committed to selling that property, and they need to make arrangements for a new place to live.
Well, you gested to, hey, once the contract's done, the option period is there. The final thing we're waiting on is the appraisal. And of course, we've talked over and over about the difference in inspection and appraisal. And the appraisal creating a value for that property because the lender and the buyer are buying it jointly. The lender's always involved. We want to create a value. And when that value on that appraisal does not come in at the contract price, then everybody goes back to the negotiating table. as you said. That's when kind of that contract is no longer, it's not null and void, but it is, everything's negotiable at that point because we have to restart. Is that correct?
And that's the power of the seller. Is the only power they have is by answering no, I will not come down on price. And they still have to sell the property if somehow the buyer and the lender can come up with the money. But if that's not the case, the seller will go, no, I'm not going to lower my price. And then the buyer drops out and the seller's, he's going to get a new buyer.
No harm, no foul on either side.
Well, there's a little bit of a harm and a foul in that the house has been off the market for 30 days generally, and the buyer has spent a lot of money on inspections. And so there is a little harm and there's a little foul in a transaction that falls apart because of financing at the very end. But who's hurt worse? Probably in that situation, I'd say the buyer, because if they don't have a lot of cash and they've spent some of it on appraisals and inspections, and then it can matter. But a seller really isn't out any money. I mean, they're out. In fact, they get the $100 from the option period or whatever the fee was, but they're not really out a lot. They can put it back on the market.
Okay, so hopefully you can still back out of a deal on either side, but there is consequences at some point. Now, here's an interesting one, and especially with our new, do I really need a real estate agent? And I'm going, right off the bat, I'm going to tell you, if you've never negotiated a contract in your life, if you've never been a real estate licensed professional, I would not, for the largest purchase that most Americans are going to make, do this by themselves. Whether on the listing or buying side, you always want to have that real estate agent there partnering with you, advising you. It's like going to court, you trying to be your own lawyer, and you don't know the processes, you don't know the way. It is challenging. And for sale by owner, the biggest thing I'm going to say there is, if you want to go down that, understand in negotiations, do you understand the whole process? So help us understand a little bit on, do I need a real estate agent? Taking either side, buyer or listing, I think that's a critical position, a critical job for them to have that partner with them. The biggest thing I would think, do you trust, and do you have somebody that you trust and work with and getting to know? And that would be the key thing. Would you agree, or how would you answer that?
Well, I'd say you nailed it pretty good. I mean, first off, legally, the answer is no. You don't. There's no law that says you have to use anybody.
Yeah.
So that's the technical answer, I guess. But to Blair's point, it's the biggest purchase on a buyer side. Let's start there. It's the biggest purchase you're ever going to make for 98% of us, 99% of us. So do you want to go that alone? No, because it doesn't cost you a penny anyway. So in Texas and in most other states, the sellers pay the commissions, and there's a reason for that. The listing agent represents the best interest of the lister, the seller. The buyer agent has a right to be represented as well, and that's paid for on the proceeds of sale of the house. So as a buyer, it would be silly to go about it without an agent. Just silly. Doesn't mean you have to, but there are buyers out there that are smarter than real estate agents. There are. So heck, good luck. Do your thing. On the other side of it, for sale by owner has always been around, and it's going to always continue to be around. But in general, they don't do as good a job as an agent will do. They won't get the money that they want. They think they're saving commission, but if you're not getting top dollar for your house, you're not. And there's things during the negotiations of repairs and things they might find on their diligence that we've got a lot of good advice, a lot of good recommendations, and can help people get through it financially better than trying it yourself. So, but you know what? There's no law that says you have to, but you should.
Mark, you're on here. What is your personal opinion on, would I take a real estate agent, or do I need one? You're a basic consumer. What is your thoughts on that?
You should get a real estate agent. And if you have a conversation like with anybody and you're in your gut feel and your instinct is you're not comfortable with that person, then go home and talk about it with your spouse or significant other and find another real estate agent that does meet your needs. I will say that this is the first time we've used a real estate agent out of state, somebody that I had no connection to, somebody I didn't know anything of anything. We did some research on our first one and great reviews, great everything. But my gut feeling on the very first phone call I had, it wasn't getting me anywhere. I wasn't getting the fuzzies. I felt like I was asking all the questions. I felt like maybe the person didn't want to sell me a home or just felt like it was like, here's just another person. I just didn't get that fuzziness. And so I didn't return the phone call and I did some more research and I found another one. And I'm glad we did because I made it very clear what my intention was. Wanted a home. I'm out of state. I'm looking for land. I would like a one-of-a-kind home or some kind of special home. We're looking for this type of frame. And I gave the basic 10 necessities that we had. Can you help me? And that person immediately started guiding me. The areas around that we could look at, the places where homes were possible for sale, the nooks, the crannies, the places where maybe a lot of realtors wouldn't look. Now, she's not from the area. She was from a different city, but she works in a 100-mile radius. And we're within that 60, 70 miles from her. But she sells a lot of homes up here. And I'm really glad that we did because she gave us the nuts and bolts of what it's going to take to be out of state to move into another state. She told us about the homes in the area, the type of people that live in the area. Spot on. There wasn't nothing negative about her whatsoever. And she referred me to no more than 3. And she never pinpointed one person that says, okay, you should do an inspection. Here's 3. You should have somebody do a market value out there other than myself. If you want to know what it's like to move from Texas to Michigan, here's 3 people that are referred. And we appreciated that. Did we use it all? I used the inspectors because I did go out and do the research. I didn't know anything about the title companies and stuff. We didn't really care about that too much, as long as that it's somebody that she worked with and that was a continual basis and there was a relationship. That was critical. So in our standpoint, the real estate agent was to make it or break it. I don't think that if we had a different agent, we might not have bought this home. We might not have got where we got.
Well, that's a great testimonial. I honestly, anybody considering going down this road without a partner to work with, and especially since the seller or the listing, the seller portion is paying for that, I would definitely bring somebody on your side, get to know them, trust them. So they evidently brought great value to you, Mark, and I know Alan does that every time he works with anybody. So moving on, I want to make sure our listening audience, you can write your questions in the comments section. We will try to respond to them as we go down this top 10 list. Right next on our question was, when is the best time to sell or buy a home? And right now, coming out of this, I would think selling is a key thing, since we see prices going up in several areas, as well as, there's a lot greater demand than there is supply. Is that correct, Alan, right now?
Yeah, it's kind of turned that way. Inventory is down a little bit, and demand is coming up again. So it's slowly becoming a seller's market. I wouldn't say overnight, but it's slowly getting there, and it stands to reason going through what we just went through. We're coming out of winter, and then we ran into COVID, and I personally lost 3 deals to job loss. Things change. So doesn't mean they can't buy in the future, but for now, it stops. So that's real world effect by the COVID. But when is there, if take that away, when is a good time to buy? Well, a good time to buy is when you as a family or an individual are ready to buy. that's a good time to buy. Now the seasons might be different. In general, it slows down a little bit around Christmas. If you're a buyer and you can land a house in, December, January, November-ish, yeah, you might get a little bit better deal. And in real estate, you do make your money on the buy. You get your money on the sell, but you make your money on the buy. But then again, in 10 years, 15 years, if you pay an extra $3,000 on a house, does it really matter? No. You're going to be tickled pink in general. Can't control these kind of things. But so when is the right time to buy? The right time is when it's right for you and your family. And a good realtor, a good lender, anybody will help you do that. And with no questions asked about why now or why don't you wait. That's silly. You help somebody that's ready to be helped.
I love that. That's exactly how I look at things. Because if you're ready and your family's ready to go, then now's the time to go. I can, as a testimony, I can look back and say, look, we bought our last house in 2006. We were 100% in that house until 2012. And then there was an opportunity that we might move, stay in Texas, but move to Austin. We did. We looked. We went all into it, found houses, found everything. But I realized that I wasn't, not my wife, me, I wasn't ready to sell the house. And I wasn't ready for the move. So we didn't. A couple of years later, around 2015, we thought about it again. But our finances weren't where we needed to be. My business was picking up. My other business that I had owned had shut down. And we weren't ready. Neither one of us were ready. But when you're ready, you'll know it. I wasn't ready to move to Michigan. It wasn't a thought process. It was kind of impulsive, but at the same time, we actually thoroughly planned out an idea when it would look like, because we talked about it. And when it was ready, the house was there, the real estate agent was there, and the finances were there, and we got it at the time when it was ready for us. That was the right time to buy.
That's exactly how it should be. That's exactly how it should be.
Yep, and that's generally anywhere from a 12 to an 18-month process if you start planning. And so often, sometimes people, well, we're coming up 3 months, we're going to be out, our lease is up, and there's a situation we have to deal with. I would start this process at minimum 9 months, researching where you're at financially, as well as what you want to look for, and be talking with somebody like Alan that can advise you on here's the areas, here's the process. Now, selling your home, is there, just like in retail, is there a good seasonal time to be selling your home that you get max dollar for or thought, or is it, hey, whenever you're ready to sell, you sell?
Well, I think that still applies. When you're ready, you're ready. Yeah, it tends to get a little busier when the weather, more activity when the weather's nicer. And school zones make a difference. People want to get into a certain area so their kids can go to that school. That matters. And so you generally need to be in there by May, June, somewhere in that area. So, but again, it's like Mark said, if you're ready, then you're ready for that reason. But a lot more people are ready for that reason. I'll just put it that way. People do want to get into school zones. It happens every year. And school zones change. Just about every family I talk to has a school zone in mind. I want this district, not that one. Okay, great. And so that's a big deal. But time-wise, not really. Just if you can you have to buy the house in time to be in the school, then that matters. But if not, then you get the house. Like we bought a house out of our school zone. And my daughter got grandfathered into the other school. We moved out. She stayed at her other school till she graduated, but she was a junior, going to be a senior. And so that worked out. But now in general, it does get busier when the weather's nicer and people are more mobile, and it does get a little less busy during the holiday seasons. Christmas is generally not a big real estate time, although I've closed many in December. And November is not huge. And typically the first week or two of January isn't great. But other than that, especially in the South, the weather's the weather. So it doesn't change all that much. Up north, when you're plowing, it might be different. I don't know. I've never sold a house in northern Michigan, so I don't know that. But I've lived in houses in northern Michigan.
Alan, I have a question for both you and Blair. So, and this may be before your time, but I'm just curious, as you guys are real estate agents and brokers, and the industry, when did it change that families? Because let me go back. When I was brought up, if you wanted to move, you found the neighborhood, the nicest houses, the best looking, the favorable to the job, the favorable to your family. That's what you did. When did it change, 70s, 80s, 90s, that it became the number one prevalent reason to sell in that community was because of the school, of the zone? When did that become the number one?
Well, it got more important as populations grew. So if you're in small town America, like for instance, the little town I grew up in the Upper Peninsula, 4,000 people, you were in the school zone, no matter where you lived. Okay, so, but now we're in Dallas, Fort Worth, right? And we're growing leaps and bounds. There's close to 7 million people in the Dallas, Fort Worth area now, which is Boston big. So as you build houses, you need more schools because more people are moving in. And as you build schools, they tax for school districts and they need a tax base. And so things get moved and school zones are created. And and then reputations are had, which schools are better than other schools and who achieves better in the scholastic test. And then a lot of people do it for sports in the bigger markets. Texas football is huge. So in high school. So there's a lot goes into that, but in general, I don't think there was a day like, March 10th, 1979 or something. I think it's more of a small town America will not change. You have a high school, you have a junior high and, that kind of thing. But in larger towns, as populations grow, tax bases broaden. There's more opportunity to build schools. And when you build more schools and people need to go to them. So that's kind of in general. I don't know if that's the answer, but in general, that's kind of how it works.
I see a strong proponent of that is, buying a home is for a family and you're raising children. We're making this investment in our kids so that they can have friends, that they can have the education. And as Alan put it, the blue ribbon school districts, they desire that better school district perception. Then they also, like you said, Mark, and I think both of y'all touched on it, football or a sport. There are certain schools and areas that do that better. So therefore they want to move their child into this type of arena so they play at this level.
Right.
Again, they've got, 6A here in Texas. That's 6 divisions of football. Are you going to be recognized by a D1 school if you played, D1 or 1A football in Texas? You're going to be more seen if you're in a 6A program. You're going to get more training. You're going to be more competitive. So I see a lot of that. But again, I've also seen people stretch themselves so thin that they're barely getting into the arena that they want. That's where we hope common sense takes over. But again, priorities are there. That's what Alan does such a great job on. What are the key things? Location, 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 as they say, but we're building a family. We want what's best for our children. And I think that really started late 70s, 80s, in my opinion, and went from there and went to the extreme in some cases, especially with divorced children, divorced parents. Hey, I'm going to live with dad or register with dad because they're in the better school district, but I'm, most of the time I'm with mom across town. There could be several different situations like that, and those are challenging. But that's a great question. Hopefully we've given some answer. We're running up against our deadline here, and we barely covered half of our questions. So maybe next week, Alan, we'll come back and try to finish up the rest of them. I hope everybody's seeing the market is unbelievable. The growth of the market right now, I got to tell you, it's just I don't know where it's coming from. I don't understand how it's doing it, but it is doing it and in a big way. The market is actually, I'm going to bring it up here real quick. We're up again, and we're staying up. So again, another market day, I think, based on the vaccine race that we're having between two major vaccine companies, plus the reopening of so many states have started up, and this weekend being Pentecost and all the churches opening up. That's the only thing I can see as indicator, but we have a strong market. If anybody's out there needing help, lending, real estate, give us a call. Follow us at KVGI Media, either on YouTube or Facebook. And please join us next week as we complete out all of our questions that have been asked and so forth. Any comments, last comments from you guys?
I'd say that's good advice. People they've been in their houses for 3 months, 2 months. They're wanting to come out. They're wanting to participate in the economy. They're wanting to support small business because small business is what built this country. And I try to remind everybody that every big business was a small business at one point.
Amen.
And so it's how we started out, and it's how this country is going to survive in the future. And I'm just glad we're on the rocket ship up. Speaking of rocket ship, one's taking off in about 2 hours.
Yeah. That's amazing, isn't it? Isn't that privately done?
Yes.
Yes.
First time astronauts are actually going up in a private funded rocket ship.
2 of them.
Wow.
If it doesn't rain.
Hey guys, well, I'm Blair Thomas.
I'm Alan Pace.
And that's it. But Mark, appreciate you joining us today. God bless everyone. Have a great week. We'll see you next week.
Bye-bye.